back in our studies again. Today we'll be talking about the weapons of our warfare. As believers, we have to know how to fight. We have to know how to defend the faith, and we have to know who our enemy is. A lot of times we're fighting flesh and blood, and we're fighting family and friends and acquaintances and strangers, but we don't realize sometimes that our enemy is not flesh and blood, but our enemy is a spiritual enemy. Let me read to you from 2 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, and the 3rd verse through the 6th verse. It says, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare is not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ, and having a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your disobedience is fulfilled." The thing is, we got to realize that the fight that we fight is not a fight to the flesh, but the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through the pulling down of strongholds. Now, what is a stronghold? A stronghold is something that holds you strong. It could be in the physical, it could be a chain, it could be a jail, it could be a prison. But in the spiritual, it could be something like a addiction that has a grip on you. Maybe you're a smoker and it's just holding you back. Maybe alcohol has something that locks into you. Maybe it's a sexual addiction or something of that nature. We have to understand that. We have to fight those fights through the Spirit of God. It goes on to say, "And casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God." And what we have to do, we have to cast those things down. We have to fight those things. That we don't have to allow those things to win. If you're addicted or if you're locked into something that you know you have no business being involved in, you must have the Spirit of God on your side to help you fight. And you must be willing to cast down those imaginations, those things that all the time you're thinking about it. It's always in your mind, it's in your heart. It's something that always comes to the forefront. You want to fight it, you want to win over it, but you keep yielding to it. Those things have to be cast down. You have to take them and throw them away from you willingly. You have to consciously cast them down. You'll never win the battle if you don't consciously want to win the battle. So you have to cast down the imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Those things will say, you're not going to win. They're going to look at you, those addictions and those things that causes you to be in bondage, and they're going to say, "I had you for 10 years or 15 years or 5 years, maybe 50 years," and say you will not win over these things. But you have to fight a spiritual fight, have the power of God in your life, cast those imaginations down, because when you cast them down, you're not doing it under your own power, you're doing it under the power of the Spirit of God. And then you must also, when you cast those things down, your mind has to start being renewed. Because it goes on to say, "And bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ." In order for you to win, you must be obedient to God. Once you cast that thing down, God's going to give you the strength to have the power over it. But you must be obedient to that Spirit of God. God's going to give you the strength, but your obedience is the thing that's going to give you victory. You won't have victory if you don't have obedience. You must be obedient to the Spirit of God. Now, let me go on to say this. Just because you're obedient to the Spirit of God don't mean that it's not sometimes going to be difficult to cast some of them things down. But God will give you the strength to go through that thing and to get victory over it. But you're going to have to cast it down. It's just like if I have a hot pan in my hand and I know it's hurting me, I cast it down. I get it out my hand. Because I know if I hold it too much longer, it's going to hurt me. And some of us have hot pans in our hands and we know it's hurting us, but we won't cast it down. We hold on to it. We have to get rid of it. We have to take every thought and put it into captivity to the obedience of Christ. God will give you victory if you fight a spiritual war. Stop fighting the carnal war. Fight the spiritual war. The spiritual war will give you victory over everything that you need victory over. Whatever addiction you may have, whatever problems you may have that has you a stronghold in your life. It might be a sexual addiction and it has a stronghold in your life. And you're losing because you keep yielding to it. You're going to have to fight that fight in the spirit. You're going to have to cast down those imaginations and all the things that exalt itself against the knowledge of Christ. It also says, the Bible also says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove that which is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Let's fight the good fight of faith. Let's fight the fight in the spirit and not in the flesh. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but we wrestle against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. So we have to learn who our enemy is. And if we understand who our enemy is, and we understand the weapons that we have, which I'll speak on in our next session, if we understand those weapons, we will have victory. We will be able to fight the fight and not have a carnal fight, but a spiritual fight. God bless you. This is Minister Jeff Marbly for moving ahead in